Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
We're getting a break from the bitter chill for the weekend. Temperatures inching up, but how much sunshine is coming with it?
Nearly 2 million Michiganders with their personal information exposed in a data breach. We'll tell you why. You're going to have to go talk to your boss on Monday.
All right, Jason, but we begin with breaking news right now in Southfield as this massive apartment complex continues to burn. The fire at the Carnegie Park Apartments just reached its fourth alarm a few moments ago.
This is what it looked like a little while ago from Sky 4 with smoke pouring out from all over this massive complex. Let's bring in Sean Lay, who's standing by live with the latest on they're trying to get the upper hand here, Sean.
Trying to get the upper hand, and finally we're seeing progress here. You see all that, what looks like smoke here on the back end. That's steam at long last. Good news for firefighters, because if you look over here, they need a break. They've been fighting this fire for more than 5 hours. A woman thankful to get out alive as firefighters go unit to unit, making sure everyone is out safe. It all started in a bottom floor unit at the Carnegie Park Apartments and quickly spread up and through the second and third floors. Keith Paul Jr. was upstairs playing Xbox when smoke started pouring into his unit.
I just smelt it. I smelt the smoke.
Right away.
And then when I turned around, I seen smoke coming into my apartment.
The only way for Paul to go out to the balcony as Southfield firefighters were just pulling up.
They just parked right there, and then I was like, hey, can someone come get me? And they just came over with a ladder and got me down.
As firefighters were on one end of the building, Rebecca Harris slipped into her unit to grab her cat Lucy.
I'm very worried about it, but at least nobody is hurt and things are replaceable.
The problem here, the fire got into the attic.
We had a collapse of the second floor and the third floor. We ended up pulling everyone out and went to defensive operations.
And the cold isn't helping.
It's thawing now.
Oh, and now it's thawing.
Yeah, it was stiff before.
Excuse me. All right, back here live. Here's the deal. Back here live. Just talked to Chief Menefee again here in Southfield. 16 units in all have been destroyed here. Did not pop to any other buildings. The damage here is that 30 families are out of their homes. School buses just pulled up. The families have been huddling in the main area of the apartment. They're with their pets, they're okay, but Southfield now working with the fire department and these families to get them into a shelter like a rec center overnight. Guys, back to you.
All right, Sean, and we'll keep updating that story here over this next 90 minutes of news. Now to a developing story we've been following all afternoon.
Personal information of nearly 1.9 million Michiganders leaked by the state. Jason Colthorpe has been getting answers and joins us live. And Jason, is there any evidence that this information has fallen into the wrong hands here?
None, Kimberly, and that's actually the really good news here. The only people who had access to this information were employees of the Michigan Data Automated System, or MIDAS, and they are authorized users of that system. They just weren't authorized to see this information. The State Department of Technology, Management and Budget is calling it a computer glitch that exposed first and last names, social security numbers, and wage information of 1.87 million Michiganders. It happened on October 10th of last year when a company updated the Unemployment Insurance Agency's software and left access open to the 31 third-party vendors that do business with the UIA. Those 31 vendors aren't being named right now. It wasn't discovered until January 30th, but was fixed within hours. So, who's affected here? Anyone in Michigan whose employer uses a payroll vendor. In other words, an outside company who handles the paychecks. It is not directly related to people receiving unemployment benefits. The state thinks everyone can be confident their info is secure because to anyone who may have accessed the file, it would have looked like a bulk file meant for a computer to read, so they likely would have just closed it out. Now, that being said, the state police cyber division is investigating around the clock through the weekend, as long as it takes, to find out if anyone did access that information, who they are, and to go from there. Now, if you're out there wondering if your company uses a payroll vendor and you don't know if you're affected in this, just on Monday, ask your boss if the company does do that, and then you can go from there and monitor your situation, your bank records, your credit, and all that. But again, it's been exposed since October 30th. If you were affected, you'd likely know it by now. Reporting live tonight, Jason Colthorpe, Local 4.
Well, Jason, I'm wondering, how did they discover the problem in the first place? Do you have any idea?
We do. An employee who was working realized they were only supposed to see records for one company and stumbled onto a lot of different numbers and records of something she knew she wasn't supposed to see, reported it immediately, and then, as I said earlier, the company came in and made the fix immediately. Kim.
All right, 1.9 million people. That's a lot of folks, though. All right, Jason, thank you.
Well, we head into the weekend with kind of a good news, bad news sort of situation on the weather front.
Yeah, Ben, we've got both sun and the chance for some snow, right?
That's right, Kim and Devin, but the better news is it's the weekend, regardless of what the forecast says. Wind chill still in single numbers in a lot of locations, especially out there off to our northwest. Howell 4, 2 is how it feels in Flint. Ann Arbor 9, and just barely over 10 degrees within our metro zone for those wind chills currently. Air temperatures will slide from the 20s into the teens by midnight. Skies are going to be mostly clear, so we'll get a little bit more sunshine before it actually sets, and we'll talk about that weekend snow and what could be a bigger headache as we get into next week. Devin?
To Washington now. Today, the president got tough on Iran, introducing new sanctions. He also delivered on another campaign promise, pledging to roll back business regulations. Now he's off to Florida for the weekend. Tracy Potts has the day and more from Washington. Tracy?
Devin, good evening from Washington. The U.S. pushed. Iran is pushing back with its own sanctions tonight against Americans, insisting they will not be pushed out of this nuclear deal. President Trump today on Iran.
They're not behaving.
His administration announced new sanctions on 25 individuals and companies tied to Iran's missile program and its elite special forces unit. His response to Iran's missile test on Sunday.
I hope that Iran realizes that after the provocative measures that they've taken, that they understand that this president, this administration is not going to sit back, take it lightly.
Some lawmakers are concerned how the president's handling Iran.
His belligerent tweets, I think, are going to get us closer to war.
There's support on Capitol Hill for the sanctions, even from some Democrats.
They're targeted. They are restricted to some individuals and a few companies.
Also this afternoon, the president signed orders to begin rolling back Wall Street regulations enacted after the 2008 financial crisis. He says it's been hard on businesses.
They just can't get any money because the banks just won't let them borrow because of the rules and regulations.
Democrats say they'll fight to keep those rules and insist today's order does little.
Clearly, it's a law. He can't do a whole lot.
The president's asked the Treasury Department for a report on what he can do within 4 months. The president's advisory council met today minus one critical CEO. Uber's CEO resigned amid threatened boycotts. Despite speaking out against the president's travel ban, some users thought just by being part of the group, he was supporting it. From Washington, Tracy Potts, Local 4.
All right, Tracy. And by the way, one other note, early this morning, very early, 6:30 a.m. vote, Betsy DeVos won a procedural vote in the U.S. Senate. That means the final vote on her nomination as Education Secretary, we expect will happen on Monday.
Today, President Trump's travel ban took a bit of a blow from a federal judge right here in Detroit. In response to a lawsuit, Judge Victoria Roberts reaffirmed that the travel ban does not apply to permanent residents. Let's bring in Coco McAvoy live. And Coco, this was an issue that the administration addressed.
Yes, Kimberly, the White House already released a memorandum saying legal permanent residents would not be impacted by this executive order. So then the question becomes, why would make a ruling on this? Well, attorneys say it was to provide clarification and assurance to legal permanent residents across the country.
This order says that, Mr. Trump, you cannot trump the Constitution.
Attorney Nabi Ayad says that's the message behind the federal order, but the wording reads different, saying, quote, the president's executive order does not apply to lawful permanent residents.
It takes out the ambiguity and anxiety that has been out there with this community because people are afraid.
And it impacts the country as a whole because
if the Customs and Border Protection attempts to stop them, they'll be violating a federal court order that's applied across the land.
This federal order comes after a two-part lawsuit filed by the Arab American Civil Rights League earlier this week.
One was for the green card holders and one's for immigrant visas.
Part 1 was handled by the federal order, but Part 2 for immigrant visas has yet to be decided.
Some of these individuals have been waiting 12, 13 years for this immigrant visa, and they finally got it.
And though Trump's executive order is set to end after 90 days, days, Ayad says waiting it out isn't an option.
I mean, first of all, that's like saying, well, let me just put you in jail for 90 days. What's the big deal? You know what I'm saying? And there's individuals that have business travels, families, loved ones that passed away that want to go to the funerals, individuals that have dealings around the world that would be affected by this. And it's a very slippery slope.
And the hearing for part 2 of their complaint pertaining to immigrant visas will be heard on February 13th. Reporting live this afternoon, I'm Coco McAvoy, Local 4, back to you.
Coco, any idea how this federal order differs from the ones that have been issued around the nation?
Yes, so the court orders that were issued around the nation, they're different because they pertain to people who had been detained, just making sure that they wouldn't be deported and that they would be released. But this one specifically also addresses immigrant visas, which is something that's different.
Okay, Coco, thanks.
Still ahead, video shows jail guards asleep at the switch, and that is not all.
Ahead here at 5, what else these deputies are accused of doing that's now led to a huge shakeup at one sheriff's department.
Also, a terror attack foiled in Paris. What a man armed with 2 machetes tried to do inside the city's famous Louvre museum. Let's try that again, the Louvre. There we go.
But first, get ready to dodge the orange barrels. What you need to know ahead of the huge I-75 closure that starts tomorrow.
And we continue to follow breaking news out of Southfield. That is where fire has destroyed one of the buildings at the Carnegie Park Apartments on 11 Mile between Inkster and Franklin. Crews still on the scene working to put out the fire, so we would still expect to see a lot of smoke in the area. Fortunately, no injuries have been reported, but we will stay on it both here on air and online at clickondetroit.com. We'll be right back. We reached out to
New at 6.
This time she showed up. The mom who skipped her sentencing on child abuse charges earlier this week explains where she was and learns how long she'll be behind bars for her daughter's drowning death.
Plus, why the case against a man accused of beating his wife with a hammer just took a major turn. New at 6, why the charges against Patrick Johnson have been changed.
Funny to think these drivers on the Rouge River Bridge will be some of the last to travel that southbound stretch of the road for the next 2 years.
Yeah, these are live pictures right now from Sky 4 over the bridge. What will shut down tomorrow so that massive construction project can get underway. Kim DeGiulio has a look at the detours you need to take if you plan to head downriver.
Good evening, everyone. Tomorrow is the big day, the start of that 2-year southbound I-75 construction project happening from downtown to downriver. It starts at Springwells going all the way to North Line. Now, MDOT does have an alternate route in place. That would be to take I-96 westbound down to I-275. That will take you back to 75 southbound. However, there are other ideas that you can do for alternate routes. This one here, I-94, you can take that to Telegraph. That may be a little bit quicker. There's also I-96 to Telegraph in this area, or you can even think about using I-96 to Southfield Road. But again, this is a long project. This stretch of the project expected to last all the way till October, so just make sure you give yourself plenty of extra travel time come Monday morning for your new commute.
All right, Kim. Today, parents and teachers rallied to speak out against the closure of 24 Detroit public schools.
The rally was held at Osborne College Preparatory Academy, one of the schools the state is slated to close because of poor academic performance. The rally was organized by the Detroit Federation of Teachers. 29 student officers graduated from the Police Academy today in Detroit.
Ceremony took place this morning at Greater Grace Temple on 7 Mile. In total, 29 students were sworn in at the graduation. Along with those students, Detroit Police Chief James Craig and other DPD executives were there in attendance. Congratulations.
Yeah, good looking bunch too.
Sure is.
That's fantastic. All right, well, we've seen some sunshine today, which has been remarkable.
Sun's out.
It helps. It really. We keep saying this week, but cold and sunny just seems to do something for the disposition, don't you think?
Yes, I can see that until you want to look at the wind chill map, and then you may want to rethink that position.
It was a little brisk.
But yeah, it's still definitely, it will, I guess, not shock you, but don't let it fool you when you see the sun banking off those buildings out there at the airport. 23 is the temperature, feeling like 11, and that is our warmest wind chill in the entire area right now. Most of those are in single numbers. That's just with a 14-mile-an-hour wind. The air is dry, and yes, this is more typically what we usually see this time of year, even though it is below average. We'll get back there in the 7-day forecast. Want to take a quick check back at January. It did finish out warmer than normal. Normally 25.6 is our average temperature. We were averaging 32. And that is taking the low and the high together. So that puts us as the 12th warmest January on record. Total precip a little bit above normal. Snowfall almost right at average. We usually see about a foot, a little over a foot. We picked up 11.8, so not too far from that mark. We do have the clearer skies out there right now with some clouds still remaining in our north zone, but generally overnight we're going to stay with mostly clear skies. In fact, you look back to the west, there's a whole lot more of that. So expect to see some sunshine around, at least to start Saturday. Not so much to finish, as we will be seeing clouds build ahead of our next chance of snow, even with warmer temperatures. So we begin bright. Here come those high clouds in the afternoon, and we're going to see some scattered snow showers through the day, or really Saturday night into early Sunday morning. Anything that does show up should be out of here before lunchtime on Sunday. Front will kick that out. Right now it doesn't look like we're going to see any accumulation, but behind that front we get even warmer. Unfortunately, we've got a little bit of a mess headed our way on Tuesday. We'll get to that in a second. Here's our lows tonight, right around 13 in the city. There will be spots that only see single digits, but I don't think that we'll quite get there in a south zone. Anywhere between 10 and 12 is how we'll start out our Saturday morning. Here's where we'll see 9 or so here in Genesee County, maybe down into Oakland County. Milford, you'll be at 9 degrees. Ann Arbor waking up at 10 tomorrow morning. And in our north zone, air temperatures will be 9 or 10. Again, these wind chills will be anywhere between about 0 and 5 above. Not so much of a spread between temperatures and wind chills, but still a little. High temperatures tomorrow go to 30 degrees, and the clouds will be increasing in the afternoon hours. We'll start seeing those flakes flying around Saturday night, lingering into early Sunday morning. But look at those high temperatures. They'll be above freezing. Monday as well, 38, even warmer on Tuesday. And that's kind of a complicated story. We're going to start out with some freezing rain, likely turn into all rain, and then eventually go to snow. A little too early to tell exactly when that's going to happen or if we're going to get anything significant as far as accumulations go. It does not look like that freezing rain is going to be a huge problem because the rain should take care of it pretty quickly.
It's always nasty when you get that layer of ice first and then snow on top of it, so you don't always see what's there.
Especially for morning commutes.
Yeah. But it's going to be 43 on Tuesday.
That's right. We're getting there.
That's one thing to look forward to. Thanks,
well, a trove of Egyptian artifacts right here in our own backyard. Go tell your mummy. We are.
Oh, that was so
sorry.
bad, Devin.
That was really, that was weak.
Bad.
But we're going to give you a sneak peek of a new must-see exhibit coming up in a minute.
We'll have that coming up, but first, terror in Paris. What police there are saying after an attacker is foiled inside the city's most popular museum. That's next.
In Paris, officials at the Louvre closed the museum and kept visitors inside from leaving today after a soldier shot a man who was armed with a machete. Police said the man shouted, "God is great," and attacked another soldier before he was shot 5 times near the museum's shopping mall. He was seriously wounded. His identity, nationality still unrevealed to us. But meanwhile, investigators said no explosives were found in the 2 backpacks the man had been carrying. Paris's prosecutor has opened a terror investigation. Nissan recalling more than 300,000 of its midsize cars here in the U.S. because the doors may open if the rear window is lowered.
The recall covers the Nissan Altima from the years 2015 to 2017. The automaker says the latch lock cable in the doors may not have been routed properly. It can cause the window assembly to interfere with the cable and inadvertently open a door. Dealers will modify the doors to make sure the cables are routed properly. In Florida, several deputies are facing suspensions after sleeping on the job.
During a separate investigation, Internal Affairs discovered overnight deputies sleeping, fighting, having sex on the job. So far, 1 deputy's been fired, several others facing suspensions. At this time, it's unclear how long these actions have been going on, but the investigation is now underway.
New at 5:30.
Flu on the rise, new reports of whooping cough, and this week, the weather is sending a lot of people to the ER. I'm Dr. Frank McGeorge. Tonight at 5, I'll show you what's going around where you live.
A cold case from the 1970s heats back up. The brand new leads in this Michigan woman's murder and how you could help crack the case.
It's the announcement we've all been anticipating. Microsoft is officially moving to downtown Detroit. I'm Evrod Cassimy. Coming up, we'll hear what Chairman Dan Gilbert has to say about the move and what this means for Detroiters.
Here's live from downtown Detroit. Local 4 News at 5:30 starts now.
The city has a new business moving in with a very well-known name. why Microsoft is deciding to say so long to Southfield and hello to downtown Detroit. We hinted at it last night, and today it became official. Microsoft is coming to One Campus Martius.
Dan Gilbert, along with Microsoft execs and Mayor Duggan, announced the news from One Campus Martius. That's the building we typically think of as the CompuWare building. Evrod Cassimy was there and shows us why it took a lot of work to get Microsoft to move.
Microsoft will be moving into this office space on the 5th floor of the One Campus Martius building here in downtown Detroit, adding to the growing list of businesses that are calling Detroit home.
Microsoft Technology Center in Detroit. How does that sound?
And just like that, a round of applause as Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan welcomed another business to downtown Detroit. It's exciting news as Microsoft's move from Southfield to the city could put more Detroiters back to work.
It's another opportunity and place for jobs for sure. Building a community of technology businesses that have an opportunity and create economic wealth for everybody. And it's we want to get more companies.
Getting Microsoft to move to downtown wasn't easy. In fact, it took Gilbert almost 3 years. Now, he hopes with the tech giant calling Detroit home, more businesses will follow suit.
All you have to do these days, it becomes easier because all you have to do is get people in the leadership downtown and take them on a tour. And now now we get to show them all these companies I was listing in that news conference. When you show them around, it's just each one becomes easier than the next one.
Now, companies have lots of good options, including if you want to be in an urban environment, you've got downtown. If you want to be in a suburban environment, you've got a number of choices.
For Microsoft, the move means a chance to get directly involved with the community. Its doors will be open to even help customers who use their products.
Specifically, we're doing Cass Tech has quite a bit of our technology, and they are we spend lots of time down there as well as with Focus Hope, and beginning to work a little bit more broadly with United Way as well.
And Microsoft anticipates being fully moved into this new office space by January of 2018. In Detroit, Evrod Cassimy, Local 4.
All right, Evrod, now one thing not mentioned specifically in today's announcement was exactly how many Microsoft employees will be moving into the new offices. Estimates based on how much space the company is leasing would peg that number somewhere perhaps around 250.
Over here with Ben, and a lot of excitement. I've been able to wear my sunglasses the past few days.
Yes.
That's kind of cool, right?
Sun's out, gun's still inside, though. We'll save that for a little bit later on.
That's right. What, sun's out, guns out?
Yes.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe a
I don't have
bit
any
later.
guns, so my brother does.
You've got time. We will be getting warmer temperatures by the weekend, but probably not enough to put the tanks on. The sunshine looks nice out there, and we're going to carry these mostly clear skies into tonight as well. The only place that's reporting mostly cloudy skies right now is Port Huron. As far as the air temperatures go, we showed you those wind chills in single numbers, but the air temperatures anywhere between the upper teens and low to mid 20s. We will obviously be falling a little bit tonight, but temperatures inching upward as we get into the weekend. In fact, our lows as we get into the early part of the 7-day forecast looking more like what we saw for highs today. So we'll look at that and our chances of snow coming up in a few minutes. Guys?
All right. Thank you, Ben. Across Michigan this Friday, we're following stories from Bay City and Grand Rapids.
And we'll keep it on the west side of the state and start in Port Sheldon. Port Sheldon is where a cold case involving a deadly stabbing 40 years ago is now being reopened. 20-year-old Deborah Polinsky was found stabbed in her apartment. This was 1977. Since then, police have interviewed more than 180 people, and yet no arrests have been made. Well, now police are hoping to find the woman pictured here, who they believe may have information about the stabbing. So if you recognize this woman, and it is admittedly an older picture, please call Ottawa County Police. In Grand Rapids, 2 new homeowners are having to turn people away after being trapped in a home scam.
William and Kelly Dowdy just moved into their dream home, but unfortunately, they aren't the only ones who want to live there. Despite living in the house for 3 months now, ads for their home keep popping up on Craigslist, and people keep trying to look into their home. Dowdys are very upset with what's happening and say no matter what they do, they can't get it to stop.
It seemed like the more I marked it prohibited or spam, the more it would go back up.
The Dowdys believe whoever is running the scam will eventually stop and are now focusing on reaching out to other families who may be going through the same thing.
General Motors announced today it's investing $20 million in its manufacturing plant in Bay City. That's an investment that's part of GM's $1 billion domestic investment plan they announced last month. The money is going to go into Bay City to help support machining operations for future engine programs, with those engines being used in Chevy, Buick, GMC, and Cadillac vehicles, pretty much the span of the brand.
The Redford Township man suspected in over 30 home invasions and sexual assaults turned down a plea deal today. The deal would have dismissed multiple charges against Ike Smith. Instead, Smith appeared in court today and said he would rather go to trial. He is now set to go to trial on charges in 9 attacks. Smith is due back in March 3rd for a motion hearing before his trial begins March 6th. One of Vladimir Putin's biggest critics in Russia has been hospitalized, and his lawyer believes he was poisoned.
35-year-old Vladimir Kara-Murza is in critical condition after a number of organ failures. His lawyer says the symptoms are similar to when he was hospitalized back in 2015, and that was when Kara-Murza said he was poisoned. Despite their beliefs, neither the victim nor the lawyer have any proof of poison. The Putin administration is denying any involvement. Starting today at Cranbrook, you got a chance to take a trip back through time, way back to the age of King Tut.
The massive new exhibit has treasures from Tut's actual tomb. Our Andrew Humphrey takes us on a sneak peek.
The glory of ancient Egypt comes to the Motown area with artifacts from King Tut's tomb at the Cranbrook Institute of Science.
It's called Tutankhamun, Wonderful Things from the Pharaoh's Tomb.
It's an impressive show. I mean, King Tutankhamun is such an identifiable icon in our culture.
It even combines archaeology with astronomy.
Tutankhamun's tomb contains the one known example of using Libyan desert glass, created in a huge meteorite or comet explosion over the Libyan desert billions of years ago.
Lucky students and patrons saw authentic and replicated artifacts all the way from Giza, Egypt, including statues, a chariot, and jewelry made of precious stones and metals.
Of course, the Egyptians made a great deal of use of gold, obviously. It's hard to miss that. They did use silver, and alloys of gold and silver, generally referred to as electrum.
Was it creepy seeing the mummy?
Yes.
Was it scary?
No.
Why was it not scary to you?
Because they was wrapped in bandages.
Cranbrook staff loved the reaction.
It's just fun. I mean, all of us that work in these academic fields, we're always like, it's so neat, you really trust us on it. And it is.
And they're happily impressed by students and help them find their passion for science, culture, and history.
There's an appetite for it with kids. We just had a group of school kids from Detroit come down the stairwell above us, and a child glanced in and went, look, the bust of Nefertiti. And here was a 5th grader who recognized such an iconic Egyptian queen right off.
It really, really, really inspires me, and I believe that I can really do it when I grow up.
The exhibit is here from now all the way until Labor Day, but visit soon and visit often, because there is so much here that will inspire the scientist, archaeologist, or historian in your family. In Bloomfield Hills, Andrew Humphrey, Local 4.
The exhibit is open during regular museum hours and costs an additional $8 to $10 to your museum general admission.
Great exhibit, at least I think so. I had to make up for my mummy pun earlier. Here we go. Both the crowds and excitement building in Houston tonight. Super Bowl 51 a couple of days away, but hundreds of thousands of fans aren't waiting for kickoff. They're all celebrating the big game right now in the fan zone, and that's where Jay Gray is tonight. Hey, Jay.
Good evening. The Super Bowl is a bucket list trip for most people, but tonight we're going to introduce you to a guy who's been to every single championship game, and this one, well, it may be his last.
Super Bowl weekend is finally here. Falcons.
So confident. I mean, why wouldn't we be able to win?
And Patriots fans.
Yeah, I'm going to guarantee the victory.
Geared up and ready for the big game.
And we're just excited to be downtown, having a good time, taking in the experience.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience for most fans, but it's a once-a-year event for Don Christman.
And here's my seat for number 1.
Christman, a Patriots fan, and 2 of his friends have been to all 50 Super Bowl games.
I told the group I was quitting at 50, but with the caveat that if the Patriots get in, I'd be here.
So he's in Houston for another championship run.
Got to make sure we come home with a Lombardi trophy. This is important. I don't know how many more I got left in me.
The big game, a big kick for fans, from rookies
It's amazing, and I love it.
to Super Bowl veterans.
And Christman tells us his ticket to the first Super Bowl game cost a whopping $12. In Houston, Jay Gray, Local 4.
The only deal in town, probably. Now, Lions fans, of course, have been now waiting more than 50 years for a shot at the Super Bowl. Believe it or not, turns out having your favorite team in the big game might make you sick.
When reading this, I thought it made sense, really. A new study from Tulane shows there's an increase in the flu in cities with teams playing in the Super Bowl. Researchers say the reason for the increase is because those cities tend to have larger parties with more dip sharing and high-fiving than the rest of the country.
This mostly boils down to double dipping in a lot of ways. That's not.
People still do it.
I'm willing to put up with the sickness, though, if that's what it'll take to get the Lions there.
Right. I'd get a little
I'll
tummy
do my
flu.
part, yes. While everyone's busy gearing up for Sunday's game, some folks in the UP are going to be busy watching snowmobiles.
New tonight, the crazy endurance race some say is like the Daytona 500 on snow.
Also, a $5,000 water bill sent to dead people. New tonight, what's behind a ridiculous bill and why the city of Cleveland says it's not a mix-up. Frank?
Flu on the rise, new reports of whooping cough, and this week, the weather is sending a lot of people to the ER. I'm Dr. Frank McGeorge. Coming up, I'll show you what's going around where you live.
New at 6.
Super Sunday could spell big trouble for that collapsed sewer line over in Fraser. And a request by the Macomb County Public Works Chief is giving people a lot to talk about at their Super Bowl parties. Priya.
Charity Week at Troy Athens is upon us, and tickets are flying off the table. We'll tell you about the very special charity that means so much for the students behind it.
All right, Priya. Now to good health, flu on the rise, new reports of whooping cough, and now the weather sending a lot of people to the ER.
Our very own ER doctor, Frank McGeorge, is here to show us what's going around. Doc?
Most hospitals and doctors' offices are reporting a lot of patients suffering from the flu or flu-like symptoms. Now, in the ER, this week's icy conditions led to a lot of fall injuries, too. Now, while they're not contagious, they're definitely something to watch out for. Here's what's going around where you live. In Wayne County, Garden City Hospital is seeing a lot of flu in children and adults. Children's Hospital is treating kids with RSV and asthma flare-ups. Beaumont, Dr. Ashley Alexander in Grosse Pointe reports viral bronchitis and stomach viruses. And the Beaumonts in Canton, Trenton, and Taylor have all seen a sharp increase in patients injured after falling on the ice. Over to Oakland County, where Dr. Robert Zaid at Providence Park in Novi is treating whooping cough in school-aged children. Influenza is hitting hard at the CVS Minute Clinics. The Milford location also treated a case of MRSA, and Walled Lake is seeing lots of strep throat. At Clarkson Medical Group, Dr. Tim O'Neill is treating croup and RSV, as well as some stomach viruses. West to Washtenaw County, the health department says confirmed cases of influenza are still elevated and flu-related hospitalizations continue, including one child. U of M is seeing flu and lots of upper respiratory infections and some asthma flare-ups. Heading to Monroe County, the ER at ProMedica Monroe Regional reports a lot of flu patients and pneumonia this week. At Dr. Anthony Songo's office, they're treating norovirus and upper respiratory infections. Finally, in Macomb County, Dr. Tony Bonfiglio at St. John Macomb is seeing flu cases. McLaren Macomb is treating infants and young kids with RSV and many patients with stomach viruses. Slip and fall injuries on the ice are back up, and the Henry Ford Health Centers in Bruce Township, Shelby Township, and Sterling Heights are all seeing strep throat and upper respiratory infections. Now, personally, most of the patients I've seen in the ER with flu this season had not been vaccinated. So remember, if you have lung problems or heart issues, it is especially critical to get that shot every year. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Doc. Dozens of racers are getting ready for the International 500 snowmobile race up in Sault Ste. Marie.
The I-500, the annual race up in the UP. Dozens of racing teams will take part in a 500-mile snowmobile race. They do not go cross-country. This is on an oval track, and every year it's an event that draws about 10,000 fans, a huge celebration for the Sioux. The race starts tomorrow at 10 a.m. Nearly 50 teams will be competing, and there is a more than $40,000 grand prize at stake.